X-Play, TV's most watched video game show.
On today's X-Play, we kick off our exclusive week-long coverage of gaming's first big event of the year. It's GDC 08 live from San Francisco. Evil is released as Morgan goes hands-on with the world premiere demo of Legendary. Plus, Adam goes on location with LucasArts' Hayden Blackman to learn the ways of the dark side in our all-access look at The Force Unleashed. That's no mood. It's game time.
Welcome to X-Play. You paid for your whole seat, but you'll only need the edge. I'm Morgan Webb, and I'm holding it down at our G4 studios here in LA. It is day one of our exclusive week-long GDC coverage, and on today's show, we are going hands-on with the world premiere demo of Legendary. But first, let's check in with Adam, who's already up in San Francisco. Adam, what's going on?
Thanks, Morgan. Well, I'm here at the Moscone Center and getting ready for a crazy week of GDC. Later in the show, we're going to have an exclusive look at The Force Unleashed with LucasArts' Hayden Blackman. But first, what is all this GDC craziness about? Well, it stands for Game Developers Conference. But if you want to learn more, well, you got to watch this.
It started a gaming revolution, became the hub for industry innovation, and gave birth to some of the greatest game breakthroughs ever seen. Every year, the Game Developers Conference draws the top talent in the industry together for a week where they can come up with bold, daring new ways to entertain gamers worldwide. It's the birthplace of blockbusters, the mecca of machinima.
Hey, freeze, Sarge!
The holy grail of game design. This is GDC. But first, a quick history lesson. The year was 1984. Atari programmer Chris Crawford gathered 21 fellow enthusiasts in his basement to talk about game development. The informal get-together includes gaming icons like Conrad Walton Jr., who would go on to develop blockbusters like The Sims and manage MMOs like Ultima Online. Together, they have so much fun, they pledge to get together next year, and the next year, and the next year. Today, GDC is the global gathering for the best minds in the business. In the late 90s, they added a brand new element, an award show that would recognize the smartest innovations and sharpest game design. The inaugural winner, none other than the plucky plumber himself, Mario. Over the years, the Game Developers Choice Awards continue rewarding some of our favorite games. The Sims created a new genre. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic proved Jedis have feelings too, and Shadow of the Colossus tugged at our heartstrings. But the awards are just one piece of the puzzle. GDC is the place where the best of the best in game design technology share ideas, opinions, and impressions. By holding workshops and conferences, they come away with new techniques and strategies to make the rest of the year's games the best they can be. If you can get in, you're rubbing shoulders with the people who make gaming what it is today, tomorrow, and forever. Last year, Shigeru Miyamoto revealed the secrets of his success, and Sony unleashed details of their online service, PlayStation Home. What major announcements are set for this year's GDC? You'll just have to watch to find out.
All right, I hope that clears up everything for you. One thing that is certain, this is going to be an exciting week at GDC. But first, let's take things back down the coast to Morgan for all of today's headlines in the Gaming Update.
Thanks, Adam. We kick off this year's GDC week with impressive PlayStation 3 news. According to NPD sales data for the month of January, the PS3 has outsold the Xbox 360 by 17%. The PlayStation brand as a whole successfully kicked off the new year by generating $486 million in January. This is also just in, that's a lot of money. New data from MMOGchart.com has revealed that World of Warcraft holds approximately 62.3% of the current MMO subscriptions market. It's now become clear that Blizzard's next move should be to release Mrs. World of Warcraft. A bow and some lipstick could mean another 10 million users. Now that is all for today's Gaming Update. You can get all of the week's GDC news on the go right on your iPod with the Gaming Update podcast, one of iTunes' best podcasts of 2007. Head on over to g4tv.com/podcast to subscribe. Now everybody loves presents. There's nothing more fun than tearing open wrapping paper and pulling off the lid to see what's inside, but if that box is from Pandora, you might want to think twice. We are ready to go hands-on and find out why. Legendary, you play as thief Charles Deckard, who happens to inadvertently open Pandora's box. I mean, who hasn't done that? While Charles is given amazing abilities, the box also unleashes beasts ready to destroy civilization. It's your job to set things right, stop the invasion of Earth, and make sure those powers don't fall into the wrong hands.
Joining us today, lead producer on Legendary at Spark Unlimited, John Garcia Shelton, aka Jigs. Welcome.
Thank you.
All right, tell me a little bit about the storyline in Legendary.
Well, you play as Charles Deckard. You're an international art thief that was hired to steal the contents of a newly uncovered antiquity. What you don't know, and the person who hired you, LaFay, does know, is that this is in fact Pandora's box.
Let me guess, you open it.
Yeah. you don't realize that actually the act of opening it is opening Pandora's box and releasing the creatures of myth and legend back into the modern world. And I mean, the impact's really profound. This is a huge change that really affects the entire world. Creatures like griffins, werewolves, golems, all these creatures from mythology that we thought are just stories and tales actually are real, and they come back and they want to take back the world and make it their own.
But you're not powerless either.
No, not at all. When you open the box, you're actually granted with the signet. It was the device, the lock that was used to lock the creatures in the box eons ago. That signet gives you a connection to Animus, the energy of the box, as well as the creatures that are tied to the box. You end up having the ability to pull their life force when they die, as well as you can use it for a sort of a pushback, an Animus push. It gives you a little bit of room. It has a real connection to the creatures.
Tell me a little bit about what you wanted to accomplish with the AI.
Well, what's important for the AI was that they really have a weight and a presence in the world. Most of the games that you have, all the tricks and the tools are for the player. They have the gravity gun. They have the ability to know all the objects and interact with them. It was really important for us to take those things those evolutions in gameplay that we've been seeing make their way into the game and evolve it into the AI. Really give them an awareness and presence in the world that allow them to know that this table is a table or a chair is a chair. And to a werewolf, that chair is something he can throw, and that table is something he's going to smash. But that griffin's just going to barrel through everything. They all know all the different objects. They know how to react to them. And they're going to use them in any way to take you out and take out the other people in the world.
Let's talk a little bit about online. What are some of the modes that are going to be available?
For us in online, what we've really wanted to concentrate on was bringing the creatures into multiplayer. What we've done really well is make these creatures and put a lot of effort into their AI. We don't want to put out a multiplayer that's a standard deathmatch or a team deathmatch. Our game mode is all about the creatures, how you use them to win the multiplayer mode, how the Animus ties into it. It creates a really nice aspect of you need those creatures to win the game, but they're also still doing what they do in single player. Now that combat triangle has another player against you, and you're both after the creatures and you're both after each other. It's a nice mix.
Well, it sounds like a good time. John, thank you so much for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Legendary is set for release this spring, and don't go anywhere. X-Play will return in just a moment.
Coming up on X-Play, we've got some FaceTime with the Executive Director of GDC, Jamil Moladina. Then, we'll go head-to-head and find out what games and which developers may steal the show in San Francisco. Plus, Adam goes on location with LucasArts' Hayden Blackman to learn the ways of the dark side in our all-access look at The Force Unleashed. Stay tuned, young Padawan.
So it is only on G4.
Welcome back to X-Play GDC Preview. I'm here outside of the Moscone Center in San Francisco, anxious to see everything that the Game Developers Conference has to offer. But first, let's take it back over to Morgan, who's with Jamil Moladina, who can tell us everything we can expect from this year's GDC.
The Game Developers Conference is the largest annual gathering of video game developers, with over 16,000 attendees expected. We're talking to the director of GDC 08, Jamil Moladina, for a preview of what's to come.
Joining us today, Executive Director of the Game Developers Conference, Jamil Moladina. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
All right, there are a lot of gaming conferences, PAX, TGS. What makes GDC different?
One of the things that sets GDC apart is that it is the central forum for where the game industry comes together to share their experiences making better games.
So what are we going to see at the keynote?
I would make sure you're definitely at Rod Humble's session. He's the head of the Sim Studio. He's got a few interesting things to say. Make sure you're at Hayden Blackman's session. He's the project lead of Star Wars Force Unleashed. A lot of very cool things going on, and Peter Molyneux's session.
And what are you most looking forward to at this year's event?
Well, my favorite session, year on year, is the Experimental Gameplay Workshop. This is the session where developers kind of meekly get on stage and say, well, this is what I've been working on. I don't know if it's going to be that great. And it turns out to be this huge success.
Right.
So Katamari Damacy was shown this way, iToy was shown this way, Ragdoll Kung Fu was shown this way. So there's always something spectacular that comes up out of that session.
And can you hook us up with an exclusive scoop on any of the big announcements that are going to be happening at GDC?
Well, I would make sure you're in the Star Wars session.
Okay.
In the Puzzle Quest session, and the two sessions dealing with taking game engines and making linear content like television and feature films.
All right, and what are we going to see new at GDC?
One of the challenges for us is to keep the show fresh every year, and also keep up with the amazing trends that we see developing in the game industry. One of which is the rise of virtual worlds and different kinds of online experiences that are partially game and partially just social networking. So we've created this Worlds in Motion Summit, which is running actually today and tomorrow, as well as an outsourcing summit, which deals with the business side of things.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. Now stay right there. XPlay's exclusive GDC preview show will continue right after this quick break.
Smash bugs for free. Indie Games begins in 60 seconds. Welcome to Indie Games, a minute's worth of free online fun. Now when it comes to killing flies, bashing them between two boulders is about as thorough as you can get, but it does take a certain amount of skill, and lucky you can hone those skills with Angry Boulders. Now using the Q, A, and Z keys, you crush a pair of boulders together to squash as many bugs as you can. Just be sure to avoid the beetles, or it's game over. And naturally, you want to avoid the boulders yourself, of course. And as always, when you're working with hazardous materials, please remember to wear your eye protection. Now, if you want, you can hit me up at g4tv.com/indiegames for links to this and other fun stuff. But until next time, I'm Kevin Pereira asking, what do you want for nothing?
On DVD.
Welcome back to XPlay, coming to you from the streets of San Francisco. Well, we're here gearing up for GDC 08, and in just a little bit, we have our exclusive interview with Hayden Blackman about the Force Unleashed. But first, let's go back over to Morgan, who's got a little bit of that old fussing and fighting.
Thanks, Adam. What games will be playable at GDC? Who will unleash the Megaton announcements? Who's going to get drunk and embarrass themselves on a trolley? Well, time to find out as we go head-to-head. At the Game Developers Conference, the people behind your favorite games get together for a week's worth of keynotes, seminars, and lectures about their industry. But that's not all. Announcements are made, games are revealed, and news breaks fast. Today we go head-to-head with two members of the press to find out what's going down at GDC 08. Joining us today, tech columnist from the San Jose Mercury News, Dean Takahashi. Also joining us, editor-in-chief for IGN Insider, David Klayman. Welcome to the show, guys. Thanks for being on. So, Dean and David, as video game journalists, what are you guys most excited about at this year's GDC?
I think there will be a couple of interesting developments with the keynote speeches. John Shepard from Microsoft is going to be talking about futures for game developers and what it's doing. And one of the things I think they're going to emphasize a whole lot is user-generated games. Electronic Arts is also going to announce the Sims Carnival game, where you can kind of do the same thing on a much more simple level. So user-generated games will be one of the things. I'll just throw that out first.
All right, David, what are you most looking forward to?
Well, I'd have to say I'm most looking forward to the games themselves, and I think we're going to see a few more big games than we've seen in the past from big name developers. And of course, I'm looking forward to the keynotes. I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with Xbox Live, what the next stride is going to be with that service, because it's already a great service, but now we're just looking for additional benefits that they can release through that service. So I think there might be some major announcements, like Dean said, coming through online space like that.
All right, Dean, will you give me any predictions for a big surprise that we're going to see this year?
I don't know if it's a big surprise, but the companies that have a vested interest in PC games are going to announce a PC gaming alliance. And it's sort of dotting the I's, crossing the T's to make sure that the PC offers a console-like experience. As an industry, we're gonna get together. That's something that I think will get announced at the show. All
right, David, what is your pick for the big surprise of the show?
Well, I don't know how surprising it'll be to people who've been following it really closely, but I think a safe pick for a surprise is Epic. You can always look for something from them because they're sort of a double threat. You know, they have great games and they're a technology company. So if you want to look for something exciting, you can just follow what they're going to say at the show.
Out of the big three, who needs to make the biggest impact at this year's GDC?
Well, you know, I think a lot of people would say Sony because they haven't really been on the up and up in the past, but I'm going to actually go with Microsoft because if we've seen in the past year, they've actually let loose a lot of their huge properties, and they really have to prove that they're going to stay relevant in the future. So we're going to look to them to see a lot more games coming down the line, and hopefully they have what it takes to actually stay in the race while Sony is on the rise, and of course Nintendo is already doing fantastic, so I don't think they have to really worry about anything.
All right, Dean, we'll head back over to you. What third-party developer should we be watching at GDC this year?
I think the developers that are associated with Electronic Arts are really going to have to, you know, I mean, EA itself has to really prove that it can get its mojo back. And for 3 years now, they've been pretty flat. And they've bought big companies like BioWare Pandemic. They've got a lot of titles like Spore that they're going to be showing off, and they finally announced last week that they're going to have a September 7th release date for Spore. Does that game really live up to the hype?
That is all the time we have, Dean. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And David, we really appreciate all your predictions.
Thanks a lot.
Now be sure to catch an all-new X-Play every weeknight at 8 p.m. and log on to g4tv.com/xplay for updates on everything gaming. And you need to stay right there because we'll be back right after this.
Up next on X-Play, Adam's more machine than man, twisted and evil. Why? Because he has an all-access preview of The Force Unleashed that you don't want to miss.
Welcome back to X-Play's GDC preview. While the big festivities don't start until tomorrow, that doesn't mean we can't check out one of the year's most anticipated games today. Let's see what Adam was up to earlier today when he stopped by LucasArts to get a treat for all you Star Wars fans.
Well, I'm so happy to be joined by Hayden Blackman, the project lead on The Force Unleashed. Thanks so much for joining us today.
No problem.
So let's just start with the basics. Force Unleashed, what is it all about?
So The Force Unleashed is the next chapter in the Star Wars saga. It puts you in the role of Darth Vader's secret apprentice, and fundamentally the game is about reinventing the Force. We've reimagined the Force, we have the Force out of control, over the top, and we really wanted to give you kind of a visceral Force wielder experience.
Now obviously this is due in part to the fact that we finally have technology that can really sort of capture what the Force is all about. What can a player expect to do with his Force powers?
So again, the Force is truly unleashed, so it is very kind of amped up. You're able to interact with almost everything in the environment using Force Grip, which is kind of the telekinesis of the Star Wars universe. You're able to blast through doors using Force Push. When you hit a stormtrooper with Force Push, it doesn't just knock them over, it sends them flying back like they've been hit by a cannonball. You're able to grab TIE fighters and actually throw them at enemies, and we even have a sequence in the game where you pull a Star Destroyer out of the sky.
Now, how would you describe the gameplay? So when you go into a situation, you have all these powers. Like, is it straightforward? Is it kind of open-ended? How does it play?
It is a fairly story-driven game. So, you know, you have a mission objective at the beginning of each mission. Early on in the game, that involves hunting down other Jedi or other Force wielders to destroy them for Darth Vader. And then you make your way through a level, defeating various enemies and overcoming various obstacles and completing different objectives before you finally confront the Jedi.
Do you actually begin the game with the Force leashed?
No, it's actually from the very beginning of the game. You have a force push that's really devastating. You have, a force grip that allows you to manipulate things in the environment, but they do grow over time. So eventually you're able to charge up your force push and take out a whole group of enemies. And your lightning doesn't just hit one target anymore. It actually chains from target to target.
This is the most ambitious Star Wars game that you've ever attempted, or anyone's ever attempted. What are some of the biggest challenges you found in its development?
Well, really, we kicked off, kind of knew everything with this game. So, it was a new team. We were in many ways a new studio. It was the first time we were working very closely with ILM, so there were new relationships there. We had a new tool set, a new game engine, and we integrated a lot of new technologies, digital molecular matter, which allows us to simulate the way that different materials behave in the real world based on real world properties, and Euphoria, which is biomechanical AI, trying to get all those parts working together. That was the biggest challenge, just all the new stuff that we had to deal with on this project.
Do you think that it won't necessarily sort of stop with this game, and we might be seeing the beginning of a new kind of chapter of Star Wars gaming?
I certainly hope so. I mean, again, this concept of the Force Unleashed, I think, could be applied to a number of different characters, a number of different time periods. There's certainly more story that we can tell, even with the characters we've created here. So hopefully it lives on beyond just the first Force Unleashed game.
Well, Hayden, thanks so much for talking with us today, and the Force Unleashed will be with us, hopefully, this summer.
If you loved all the inside information on today's show, you can catch even more every night this week at 8. G4's live coverage of GDC 08 continues with exclusive interviews with the biggest names in video games, brand new hands-on demos, breaking news, and more. Head on over to g4tv.com/xplay for everything you want from our exclusive GDC coverage. All right, Adam is in San Francisco right now. Adam, what is coming up on tomorrow's show?
All right, Morgan, we're going to go hands-on with Fracture. This is LucasArts' action title where you destroy and alter the Earth in order to defeat your enemies. And I'm so excited about this. We're going to sit down and talk to Dennis Dyack and take a look at Two Humans, the first chapter in his epic trilogy. Well, that's all for me here in San Francisco. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Adam. Beyond tomorrow, we have plenty more from GDC. We demo Age of Conan and get some FaceTime with Chris Satchel. You are watching the Weekend X-Play block, and another X-Play starts right now.